Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scenes from Central podcast. Now, this is a podcast where me and my friend Jacob, we go through every episode of Fullmetal Alchemist 2003, and we analyze each one. We have recorded all of these episodes, and we had a great time, and now I'm editing all through them. Now, this is the intro episode. Now, in this intro episode, we kind of go through the backstory of this show and why we're doing this show in the first place. And if you already kind of know about the whole history of this show and how it is different to Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, then I feel that you can just go on right to the first episode. If you don't know anything about this show, then I feel this episode will be very helpful to you. Now, the big problem with this show right now, and it's going to be pretty hard for me to convince people to even listen to this whole podcast in the first place, is that Fullmetal Alchemist 2003 is a bit hard to watch right now. It's hard to watch online anywhere without, watching it illegally. While we were recording this was about a year ago in 2021, it was on Netflix. Now it is no longer on Netflix. It's Younger Brother, Brotherhood, I think may still be on Netflix. It's all over now. It's very easy to watch, but Fullmetal Alchemist 2003, really the only technically legal way is to watch it is to either buy an out-of-print DVD or Blu-ray. Now, if you know me personally, you can just contact me and ask me how specifically to watch this show, and maybe we can work it out. I feel like we can. But I feel this show is a great representation of my journey in analyzing film and art and television, and it was just a fun time to talk to Jacob every week about this show that I really loved, and I feel like it is reflected in this wonderful podcast. So thank you for listening. Bye-bye. All right. Hello there. This is the Scenes from Central podcast. This is the introduction of the podcast. I am Mitch.
Hey, I'm Jacob.
This is a podcast where Jacob and I do a deep dive into a piece of media or pop culture, whether that be a TV show like what we're doing right now, or a movie, or something interesting like a piece of culture. Anything that we might find interesting to talk about for, around an hour, maybe a little bit over it.
We're a little bit of a blabbermouth, so,
Yeah,
go on.
Me and Jacob have known each other for about 10 years now. We met in middle school, 7th grade, so it's been a while.
It's been a while.
In our undisclosed ages.
You can do the math.
This topic is pretty broad, so let's get to the main topic of what this first season of Scenes from Central will be about. Instead of just having some random topic every single episode, I feel like it's really interesting to have a specific topic that goes a lot, into a super long conversation, so multiple episodes, and I feel like a TV show is a really good way of doing that.
Sounds great. That TV shows have episodes, podcasts have episodes. I feel like
I know, exactly.
Great choice.
So TV is kind of an area of my expertise. I have a lot of experience writing television. So, Jacob, what are we watching for the first season of Scenes from Central?
Well, we're going to watch this. I have it on good authority. I've never seen it before. But a lovely television show that goes by the name of Fullmetal Alchemist.
Yes.
This is the name that they have chosen for this show. And we will be watching it. So, again, I have never seen it. A very close friend of mine tells me that it is the height of television, that it is, in fact, something you might even call a cultural icon, even. Something that just, it leaves its mark upon you, and you never forget about it. So you all can follow along in my journey as the show makes a mark upon me. And we will be discussing that. We'll be talking about, I guess, episodes, a couple episodes of the show per episode of the podcast.
Yeah, per episode of our show.
Yes. Exactly.
But yeah, Jacob, we aren't just watching Fullmetal Alchemist. We're actually watching Fullmetal Alchemist 2003.
2003.
Yes.
So there were 2002 other ones, and this is the latest.
So a little bit of background on Fullmetal Alchemist 2003. There's a reason why it's called 2003, and I'll get it later. The show's actually just called Fullmetal Alchemist. But, so Fullmetal Alchemist is originally a manga. and it was written by Hiromu Arakawa. And actually, that's just a pen name for Hiromi Arakawa. So Hiromu is a male name, and Hiromi is a female name. So she wrote Fullmetal Alchemist from August 2001 to June of 2010. Okay, so it went on for quite a long time. And it was published by Square Enix's monthly Shonen Gangan magazine.
What now? Who now?
So Square Enix.
Yeah,
do you know Square Enix?
I do know Square. Yeah, they publish some video games. I'm familiar with that.
Yeah. Well, Square Enix also publishes a Shonen magazine.
A Shonen magazine. Okay.
Yeah, from the 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so the anime, this 2003 anime, is an adaptation, but it's a different kind of adaptation. It started being adapted before the manga was even close to being finished. I mean, the manga was started in 2001 and it ended in 2010. So, like, it was very, very early in the cycle. And I feel like there were literally only, like, 10 chapters to the manga before the anime was even made. So I feel like this show also, like, brings up a lot of great questions about what exactly comes into a good adaptation. So what the show did is that they decided that they were going to have a different ending at the beginning of the show. So, So what they had, and this is actually a thing that Arakawa, the original manga author, told them to do.
Okay.
And they also decided to do this. I read an interview with the writer of the show, and he kind of saw it as like an American comic book adaptation, because when we do a comic book adaptation, it's not really like one for one what the comic book is. It's usually like the Infinity Gauntlet story was not really what it was in the comics as how it turned out in the movies.
From the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he kind of, the head writer, who was Sho Aikawa, by the way, he kind of likened it to something like that when he started writing it. Yeah, so Fullmetal Alchemist 2003. So what kind of do you look in an adaptation? Like, what do you want in an adaptation?
That's a great question. Well, if I'm familiar with the source material, then I sometimes fall into the camp of, I want to see what was going on in my head while I was reading it be put on a screen, which is a very bad way to go into adaptations because you're just going to be disappointed. But I think one of the things you were bringing up there about how they planned to do a different ending from the beginning was just sounds to me like if they were going to do Game of Thrones but better. Like we're going to catch right up to where the source material is, and they were realizing ahead of time, hey, we're going to need to do our own thing. And they seemed like they had a writing team that was more interested in doing things on their own and doing it well and being committed to the show. If it's as good as I've been told that it is. So
yes,
I'll be sure to revisit that.
Like, I don't really blame people for wanting to see like what they thought in their head being actualized in like a real sense. I don't really blame that. I feel like a lot of people really want that. And then and for like specifically manga adaptations to anime, because it's so similar, because it's
fair, yeah.
They keep the same art style. It, like, for some people, they literally just want a moving version of the manga with music and voice acting, and I don't really blame people for wanting that. For me, like, I've seen a lot of adaptations where they completely go away from what the book intended, and
happens a lot.
Yeah, and it happens a lot, and sometimes it's really good. You know? And like, I'm like, oh man, I wouldn't want, like, now that I really like this. I mean, one great example is like Howl's Moving Castle, which I don't think you've seen.
Have not.
But that book is so much different than the movie, and it's like, if you think about it that way, it's like I wouldn't want that movie to be a 1-for-1 adaptation of the book any day of the week. I never would want that.
Sure.
Because I think the movie is so good on its own. And the movie is made by a person. It's made by a separate artist than who wrote the book or who wrote the comic.
Are there movies that are made by not people?
Well, no, it's just made by an actual person. Like, I feel like sometimes people kind of, take that person away because they're like, we don't really want you to add your own thing to the adaptation. We just want you to do what we want you to do. And I don't really think that's fair to the artist who's making it. because they're they have a person with their own ideas. And I think what this show does so well is that it takes core ideas from the manga and retextualizes them.
Well, because that's fair with, like, the way that stories get told in source material, moving it into the film and TV genre. Because the medium is so different, oftentimes you cannot do what the source material did. There's just things you can do with words, and I guess I'm not, as familiar, I guess, with the difference between going from manga to anime, but I know just from, like, books to TV and film, it's like you can write all kinds of fantastic things, but when it's time to put it on a screen, it's like, well, we have so much of budget and we have so much of resources, sometimes you just can't do that stuff. And so it's good to make changes, because otherwise the story wouldn't make any sense, like in the same way that it did in the book.
Yeah, so just before we kind of wrap up this little intro episode, I kind of wanted to go through the credits of the show. So, like, it was animated by the animation studio Bones. Whole show was directed by Seiji Mizushima, and the head writer of the show is Sho Aikawa. And so I'm not exactly sure how the hierarchy works in like anime production, because usually in American productions the head writer has the most say, and then the directors, there's usually like a team of directors. But for this, it's a little different. I'm sure that they probably had equal say in certain things, or like they had their own ways of saying things. But yeah, I have not mentioned that there is another Fullmetal Alchemist series.
Yeah, the one we won't talk about. So that's it.
No,
that's
but there is another Fullmetal Alchemist series that was completed after the manga was finished, and this is called Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, or in Japan it's just Fullmetal Alchemist 2009,
and it's starring Ezio Auditore.
But so Brotherhood is one of the most famous animes of all time, especially in the past 10 years. It is rated the #1 anime as of right now on myanimelist.com.
Oh, okay.
So it is a very highly thought of anime. And so, like, the reason I wanted to do Fullmetal Alchemist 2003 first is because whenever there's discourse about this show, it's usually in either comparison to Brotherhood, or like if there's something really good in the show, everybody's like, oh, I wish it was in Brotherhood. And I'm like, I really want to make the point that I think that this show has a lot of merits on its own and is a completely different show than Brotherhood, and I feel like deserves to be talked about in a way that it can stand on its own. Now, this isn't anything against Brotherhood. I think, like, a lot of fans have the attitude, it's like you're either for 2003 or you're for Brotherhood. There's no in between. It's like I just think that they're very different. Like, Brotherhood is very much an action adventure anime. It's extremely fun and it's super good. I mean, like, I really think it's an amazing show.
Sure.
And the weird thing about my anime list, Brotherhood is ranked #1 on my anime list, which is fair. It's got about like 9 out of 10 stars, and I think my anime list is rated by like users. And so it's got about 2 million votes.
Goodness.
And it's got over 9 stars. So when it's got 2 million votes and it's got over 9 stars, that's pretty incredible, considering how ridiculous user ratings can be on websites.
Too true.
But
Absolutely.
Again, this is just an intro episode before we get into the actual pilot episode. I just want to say that I'm not really an anime expert. I didn't grow up watching this show. I actually first saw it when I was like 20 years old. Again, my age is still undisclosed. So,
well, he's at least 20. We figured out that much.
But yeah. So I it's been a few years since I've seen it, but I'm not an extreme anime expert. I didn't grow up watching One Piece or Naruto or Bleach or anything like that. But I do know most of the classics now. I've watched most of the classics, and I do have a really deep appreciation for it now. But yeah, and so as we kind of transition to the end of the show, or at least end of this intro show, So if you want to watch along with us, we, again, will, at the end of each episode, we'll tell you which episodes we are watching for the next episode. So for the first episode of this podcast, we're going to be watching episodes 1 and 3.
And follow along, and then you can match up. If you've never seen it before, you can compare the way you react to the episodes to my reactions to the episodes, because, again, I'm going into this totally blind, never seen it before. Very interested because I've just been overwhelmed with the number of good things I've heard about it. It's been constant. So
I tend to not shut up about the things that I really like. So.
Well, we all have our flaws. So we're gonna experience this together. If you have seen it, then you can feel free to laugh at me when I, say something in episode 2 that later in episode 6 or 7 is gonna just blow my mind or whatever. Feel free to feel superior. I give you license to do that, because if the situations were reversed, I would be having superior thoughts about you if you were a noob to a show that I knew much about. Don't ever watch Lord of the Rings with me. So that'll be that.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.